God-fearing. Having a deep reverence or respect for God. Being devoutly religious and living according to religious principles. The community admired her God-fearing attitude, evident in her charitable deeds. His God-fearing nature led him to volunteer at the local church every week. She was raised in a God-fearing household where prayer was a daily practice. Many people turned to God-fearing leaders for guidance during times of crisis. The God-fearing townsfolk gathered in prayer after the natural disaster. Walk with God. To live in accordance with religious beliefs and principles. To maintain a close and devout relationship with God. Each morning, he starts his day with prayer, reaffirming his commitment to walk with God. His decision to become a missionary was driven by his desire to walk with God. Despite challenges, she always strives to walk with God and live a righteous life. The pastor encouraged his congregation to walk with God in both good times and bad. The elderly woman's unwavering faith allowed her to walk with God until her last breath. God's will. The divine plan or intention of God. Accepting events or circumstances as ordained by God, regardless of personal desires. When faced with difficult decisions, she relies on her faith to discern God's will. Despite setbacks, he remains steadfast in his faith, believing in God's will for his future. After much prayer, they accepted that their son's illness was part of God's will. She found solace in trusting God's will, even in times of adversity. Believers often seek guidance through prayer to discern God's will in their lives. Act of God. A natural disaster or catastrophic event believed to be caused by the will of God. Legal terminology referring to events beyond human control, such as natural disasters. The drought was attributed to an act of God, leading farmers to seek divine intervention through prayer. The insurance policy covered damages caused by acts of God, including earthquakes and floods. In legal disputes, acts of God clauses protect parties from liability for unforeseeable events. The hurricane was described as an act of God, devastating entire communities. Following the tornado, many viewed the destruction as an act of God, prompting prayers for recovery. Higher power. A deity or divine being with authority and influence over human affairs. A spiritual force or entity beyond human comprehension or control. The concept of a higher power is central to many religious and spiritual traditions. Despite doubts, he acknowledges the existence of a higher power governing the universe. She finds comfort in believing that a higher power is guiding her through life's challenges. Alcoholics Anonymous encourages members to surrender to a higher power for healing and recovery. Meditation helps him connect with a higher power and find inner peace. Divine intervention. The direct involvement of God or a divine being in human affairs. The belief that supernatural forces intervene to influence events or outcomes. Many believers pray for divine intervention during times of crisis or uncertainty. The miraculous recovery was attributed to divine intervention by the doctors. The sudden change in weather was seen as divine intervention by the sailors. Survivors of the accident credited their escape to divine intervention. The unexpected turn of events was interpreted as divine intervention by the community. God helps those who help themselves. One must take initiative and put effort into solving their own problems rather than relying solely on divine intervention. success, or assistance from God is more likely to come to those who take action and demonstrate initiative. Instead of waiting for a miracle, he decided to start his own business, believing that God helps those who help themselves. The proverb, "God helps those who help themselves," encourages individuals to take responsibility for their actions and decisions. The community came together to rebuild after the disaster, understanding that God helps those who help themselves. She knew that praying alone wouldn't solve her financial struggles. She needed to find a job. After all, God helps those who help themselves. He believed that studying hard for exams was essential because God helps those who help themselves. Spare the rod and spoil the child. If children are not disciplined when they misbehave, they will grow up to be spoiled or poorly behaved. The importance of using punishment or discipline to teach children right from wrong and ensure proper behavior. He grew up in a household where the philosophy of spare the rod and spoil the child was strictly enforced. While she valued kindness and understanding, she also believed in the proverb, "Spare the rod and spoil the child," when it came to discipline. The teacher emphasized the importance of discipline, citing the proverb, "Spare the rod and spoil the child." Some parents believe in the proverb, "Spare the rod and spoil the child," as a justification for using physical discipline. She adhered to the principle of spare the rod and spoil the child by enforcing strict rules and consequences for her children's behavior. In God's hands, surrendering control or outcomes to God's will, trusting in divine guidance or providence, accepting that certain matters or circumstances are beyond human control and leaving them to God's care. The uncertain outcome of the surgery was daunting, but he found peace in surrendering to God's hands. After exhausting all options, they left the situation in God's hands, trusting that everything would work out. The family faced financial hardship but remained hopeful, placing their future in God's hands. Despite the challenges ahead, they embarked on the journey, knowing they were in God's hands. She prayed fervently, leaving her worries in God's hands and finding comfort in faith. Level up your English. Master vocabulary, idioms, and phrasal verbs with fun quizzes. Translate meanings into 104 languages. Download now. Link in the description. Please like and subscribe to our channel.